Greetings, members, one and all of the Salivation Nation. Silver and gold should not be taxed, and the sales thereof and the profits made from them should not be taxed either. I think that's something we all can agree on, no matter what. No matter what kind of exchange, when in terms of gold and silver, they should not be taxed. But let's explore some of the reasons why we're going to pick apart this article here that comes to us from Forbes magazine, thanks to Silver Honda, written by a low-level staffer named Steve Forbes. So let's take a look here and see what this is about and why it won't happen, at least anytime soon. When you exchange a $20 bill for two $10 bills, you don't pay sales tax on the transaction, even though theoretically you are buying the tens. The notion is utterly preposterous. Yet if you purchase a gold coin that was created by the U.S. Mint and is legally usable for commercial transactions, in some states you have to pay sales tax on that coin. Uncle Sam also says people who buy and sell such coins are liable for capital gains taxes. Of course, you would never buy a silver dollar from the mint for, say, $35 and then use it to pay for a dollar candy bar. But the point is that such coins are legal tender. That's why the White House should follow the recommendation of the American Principles Project, an organization that, among other things, advocates sound money. President Trump should direct the U.S. Treasury Department to issue a rule ending taxation on U.S. minted gold coins. While we're at it, let's add silver ones as well. And while we're at it, let's add all silver and gold coins, bars and rounds. The article continues, it's only a matter of time before Washington undermines the value of the dollar again. What are you talking about? They've been doing that for years. And people should be able to hedge themselves against such depredation. Someday soon, Congress should allow Americans to use alternative currencies for domestic commercial transactions if they so wish. And that statement is interesting because, I've heard about people using alternative currencies. Well, heck, places accept Bitcoin. You can make a transaction with Bitcoin right now. But maybe what he's saying there is that it should be up to individuals whether or not they choose to accept the dollar or not, and exclusively other forms of exchange. And I think that's kind of maybe what that sentence means. But here's why Mr. Forbes is sort of in a land of wishful thinking here. Because, when you talk about a $20 bill for two $10 bills, he sort of explains himself with the silver dollar from the mint for $35, which would be very nice, actually. I don't know that the mint has ever, or at least for a very long time, has never sold a silver dollar from the mint for $35, at least a collector variety. Now, if you buy an American Silver Eagle, you'll pay spot plus at least $2 for it. And, but nonetheless, that coin is obviously taxed now, and they're cracking down based off of the Supreme Court ruling to where these things are being taxed, depending on which state you live in. But the problem is that the government will just argue and say, well, if you purchase a gold coin that was minted by the U.S. Mint, let's say it's a $20 gold coin, then they may say, well, okay, we won't tax you for the face value of the coin, which would be very minimal, but we'll tax you for the gold content. So my feeling is that, and where this article is flawed is that that's the argument they would use, and that for any American gold and silver coins, they're just going to say, we'll give you the credit of face value because that's the denomination from which it was issued, and collect the tax on the intrinsic value. And that's where the problem is. I believe that there should be a rule ending taxation on any gold and silver, bullion, or collector coins, period. That should really be it, because really gold and silver are money, and they have already been created, and they in themselves are money that's defined by the United States Constitution. But nonetheless, I think it's probably a far cry from happening, at least probably on the federal level, but Really, more practically, for those of us who are buying, when you sell, there's probably ways to get around paying that capital gains, or the taxation that the feds charge when you go to sell. But it's the states where there's the issue. And this is a thing, article here that lists all of the states here and all of what they charge. Each individual state has their own laws, and they can differ immensely from state to state. Some states, there's no such thing as a sales tax in general, much less precious metals. And others, you will pay close to an extra 10% on every purchase you make. So it's important to understand these laws, and there's some bullion companies and some places out there who are trying to adjust to this new precedent by the court decision. How do you interpret that? Apparently they've got to collect these taxes, and I think a lot of them are probably, and I've interviewed some bullion dealers who've talked about this effort, and they're being safe in and how they're dealing with this. So let's look at a high tax state like Connecticut and see what their rules are. There's a basic sales tax of a little over 6% in the state of Connecticut. This means that at the lowest you will pay, but with additional taxes imposed by local authorities, the actual amount you will pay will often be greater than this, albeit not by much. This is quite a high tax rate, and if not for the exemptions discussed below, it would make Connecticut a bad choice for precious metal investors. These exemptions, in fact, make this state a great place to purchase gold and silver, platinum, and palladium. Let's see. And tax-free exemptions to the tax rule kick in when the purchase amount exceeds $1,000. And that typically is the case for some states. So, if you live in a high tax state like this, you might want to save up and make purchases that are $1,000 or more. So is not a lot to a typical investor, that says, but it's not even close enough to buy a single gold coin, and it can present a challenge for some small-time investors, particularly those interested in low quantities of silver. In such cases, it might be better to buy online. Although you will need to shop around, well, obviously now, you're not even protected with online purchases from that. So let's take a look at another high-tax state, New York, see what their rules are here. There's a statewide sales tax of 4% in New York, but this changes depending on where you are. In New York City, for instance, where the majority of residents in the state reside, the sales tax is as high as 8.875%. This is the highest rate in the state, whereas many other locations you will pay nothing more than the rate set by the state. There is an exemption when you purchase $1,000 worth of precious metals. So there you go. Let's take a look at New Mexico and see what they're doing here. New Mexico is a little different from other states in that it doesn't have a sales tax as such, but rather something known as a gross receipts tax. This is pretty much the same thing as a sales tax, but is owed by the seller and not the buyer. The truth is that this tax is often passed into the buyer. Well, the truth is, as always, any taxes, no matter which level they're levied, they're always passed on to the consumer at the very end. Does not matter where it starts. It can be from the manufacturing to wherever. That's going to be passed along. Basically, because dealers have to pay up to 5% on all precious metals and other collectibles, they will add this amount to the price of their stock, of course. In some cases, even more will be added, as dealers take liberties with buyers' ignorance. This is why it is essential when purchasing precious metals in the state of New Mexico to go to a competitively priced dealer. And it looks like they don't have an exemption here for $1,000, so that's pretty crippling here. Take a look at one more state here and see what's going on. Let's look at the state of Pennsylvania. Taxing precious metals is a controversial issue in the state of Pennsylvania. For over a decade, there's been a tax exemption on bullion, which covers anything that is valued for its content, actual scrap value, as opposed to the item itself. However, there have been propositions by the local government to change this, including a recent proposal by Governor Tom Wolf to levy a 6.6% sales tax. The tax, I don't even think he's governor anymore. This might be old. The tax exemption does not cover coins and bars, as they are valued not necessarily for the metal content, but for their rarity. These include coins, metals, bars, and even rounds. In such cases, the statewide sales tax of 6% applies. And as is usually the case, there are additional sales taxes in certain regions, with a total tax of 7% applied in Allegheny County and 8% in Philadelphia. And so I don't think they have an exemption either. And let's see, I think Tennessee doesn't have a sales tax at all, I believe. So let me check Tennessee and see what there are. The basic sales tax in Tennessee is one of the highest in the United States. Ooh, the rate is 7%, but this is only the state rate because there are extra local taxes applied on top of that. The lowest you can expect to pay in Tennessee is 7%. But the highest is considerably more. The sales tax applies to everything from precious metals, bullion, including silver and gold bars, to some collectible coins. Wow. So they do have it. I didn't think they had a sales tax. Maybe they don't have an income tax. I think it's Florida that doesn't have a sales tax. Let's see here. Let's look at Florida. Oh, it's 6% there. Okay. There are also a number of attractive exemptions. For instance, if you purchase more than $500 worth of precious metals, you do not need to pay this tax. Also, as of 1999, all U.S. legal tender qualifies for tax exemption, even if the total amount purchased is less than $500. U.S. legal tender includes silver coins, such as a silver eagle, but also anything else produced by the U.S. Mint that carries a face value. All right, very good. If you buy precious metals for $1,000 and then sell them for $2,000, you will owe the government $280 federal capital gains tax, and for all across the United States. So, with that being said, it's times like these between the states is where we need to lobby our states on how to deal with and getting these taxes removed. And for the United States, and maybe even some states, these people here, the ICTA are a resource that can be available to help lobby for sure. And this is the Industry Council for Tangible Assets. I think that's what their name is. It doesn't actually say it here. They exist to promote the safeguard interest in its members, serving as the industry watchdog to maintain an appropriate and favorable regulatory climate in the United States and individual states. ICTA offers its members assistance and information on new and existing laws and regulation and promotes harmony and cooperation among its members to advance the welfare of the industry. Very good. So that's what that is, but it doesn't actually. Here we go. About talks about how they started. Industry Council for Tangible Assets, created in 1981. That removed it was created in response to that 81 legislation that removed it. Very good. You can read about the history there, but really, that's what the bottom line is. It's about protecting ourselves and being able to purchase these precious metals because the Constitution itself recognizes them as money. And for a long time, the taxation that did occur in the individual states was for point-of-sale purchases. The internet basically made it sort of a loophole, so now they're going after those based off that new ruling. But really, it needs to be repealed from those laws, from those states, because if the states do recognize the Constitution as such, written as gold and silver money, in fact, some of these states have legislation legalizing the use of gold and silver as money in those states. So, in my view, these laws should be repealed. Post your thoughts, and quite an interesting article. Thanks again to Silver Honda for sending this along to me. I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to y'all for watching. Keep your feet on the stars and keep reaching for the ground. Please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.